My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content.
All right, guys, welcome to Property Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Kaminsky, filling in for Dave Dubow. And have you ever wondered how a Texan by choice born in the Bay Area has been part of over $200 million of real estate to date? My guest today, Andrew, has mastered the art of success in the competitive world of real estate. He's here to share his journey. So brace yourself for an engaging discussion to unveil the secrets behind Andrew's accomplishments. Andrew, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Bryce. Excited to spend some time chatting.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot to cover, so we're going to dive into it. How did you get started in real estate?
So I was turned on to real estate really by my wife. She got me the book Investing for Dummies when we were first dating. I was, prior to this, I was a butcher for 8 years. I started that in high school, did that all through high school and college. Met my wife when I was 20, and my first foray was she went out and got that book Investing for Dummies and slid it across the counter at the grocery store I was working at. Was like, you need to read this. So I did, and got kind of intrigued by real estate and just started kind of educating myself there. When I graduated college, my first professional job out of there was working as a stationary engineer, which is essentially a facilities maintenance person, so in charge of large commercial facilities. Did that, for a number of years. And during my time doing that, I also worked on construction defect litigation lawsuits as a consultant, and was a project manager for commercial reconstruction projects. At the same time I was doing that in my W-2 job, I was also investing my own capital into buying small, like single family homes, small multifamilies in Kansas City. I'm from the Bay Area in California. And I was working in San Jose at the time, in a building there, and then investing out of state. Quickly learned that investing out of state in single family homes was not for me, or at least with the resources and time that I had available to me at that time, was not, seeing a lot of success in that. So, I kind of decided to take the plunge with a lot of encouragement from my wife, and, sold my portfolio in Kansas City, moved to Austin, Texas, quit my W-2 job, put my two, skill sets together. The one skill set being for my W-2 job and working with large commercial assets. The other skill set being buying properties on my own. I kind of taught myself how to underwrite, and could understand what, somebody looks at from, like, what an investor looks at. Like, if I'm going to go raise capital or try to bring somebody into a deal to partner with me, what are they going to want to see out of the deal? So I put those two together. I founded my company Iron Gall Investments in Austin, Texas. Started developing properties here, and then from there, I founded another company based out of San Antonio, or I was a founding member of a company based out of San Antonio called Distance 3 Development, which I hold with other partners. And through those two companies, we develop properties in Austin, San Antonio, and we buy and hold properties also in San Antonio and greater Texas as well.
Yeah. Well, San Antonio has nice cash flow numbers. Like the properties aren't, at least not yet. They're not super run up, but I'm hearing that ceiling is coming, where people are getting wise to the pricing in San Antonio. They're investing outside of like Dallas and Houston. They're moving to that kind of third market in Texas. So yeah, that's really interesting as far as the journey, because it's like, I'm a huge believer that the things we do add up if you decide, because some people just do 360s and throw away, obviously the butcher job didn't teach you anything but like how to deal with complaints and how to deal with people. But and how to work hard. That's probably what you learn there. But everything we do, I feel, adds up to this if you're lucky, it adds up to really stacking as you get a little bit older. So, um, with everything you've done so far with your real estate, where do you see it going here in the next year?
2024 is shaping up to be a pretty good year. We've got a pretty large property that's under contract right now. We should be closing in the next couple weeks. We also have some properties that will be moving, from phase one to phase two in development. So in a lot of our development deals, we'll take projects from raw land all the way through completed assets. We'll typically do that in two phases. One
Mm-hmm.
phase being the acquisition of the land and the entitlements and getting it shovel ready, and then the second phase being actually constructing the project
Mm-hmm.
and stabilizing it. And I guess the third phase would be to hold it long term. Then, so we've got a couple projects that will be moving from that phase one into phase two. We've got a few other projects that we'll be disposing of, a few existing projects or a few existing properties, I should say, that we bought as buy and hold. We'll be looking to sell some of those as we've completed the value add plan, and then some of our development deals have completed, so we'll be selling those as well. So actually, be like right now, we have a lot of dispositions on the books for 2024.
Mm-hmm.
We're hoping that with with the rumors about the interest rate cuts that may be coming in 2024, that that might help spur some interest in the greater market that will help us.
Mm-hmm.
We're also, really actively acquiring, looking for existing properties and also new development deals. So, like I said, we've got this one under contract. We've got a few more in the pipeline. So hopefully, we'll end the year of 2024 with a number of acquisitions as well. We did seven acquisitions of existing properties in 2023. So we'll look to, maybe match that or maybe do a couple less, but larger projects. We did some more medium sized ones in 2023.
So what would you say is medium?
So we bought those were manufactured home and RV parks. Medium for us is kind of in that maybe 50 spot range.
Mm.
That would be about a medium deal for us. I'd say small would be 10 to 20 spots, which we have a couple of those. Medium would be around 50 spots. We got a few of those.
Mm-hmm.
And then large would be more like 100 units or so. So, this one we have under contract right now is 109 units. So that's a larger deal for us. It's also in a much nicer market or a sub-market here in Austin. So,
Mm-hmm.
much higher rent, so much higher purchase price. Uh,
Yeah.
so we'll be looking to do more deals like that, that are larger or, medium large deals, shying away from the smaller ones at this point.
Yeah, it's energy. So how involved are you in the acquisitions process?
I'm fairly involved in the acquisitions process, but I specialize a lot more in the operations of it.
Mm.
So one of my companies called Distance 3 Development. I have two other partners in that. I focus primarily on the operations in that. And my other two partners are a little more heavy on the acquisitions. But we all three of us kind of chip in wherever is needed. In Iron Gall Investments, which is my company, that's just me, and I kind of do it all there. So I do the acquisitions and the development and everything there. So, fairly involved, but I wouldn't say that that's, my primary focus, I guess I would say.
Have there been any sort of like major challenges you had to overcome so far with your real estate?
I mean, there's always challenges in real estate. I think the most challenging year for us was 2022. And that's because, we saw interest rate hikes, like some
Mm-hmm.
pretty big interest rate hikes in a very short period of time. We had a
Mm-hmm.
couple deals blow up there. Thankfully did not end up, losing any money on that. Even on the deals that kind of exploded, we were able to to bring those back around. One, able to work with the seller to get some good extensions that allowed us to actually kind of redo the entire financing. which was necessary. On another one, the project blew up. We ended up losing like a whole lot of earnest money and due diligence costs, but the project was pretty solid, so we were able to come back a couple months later. This, because of the rising interest rate environment and that affecting prices on raw land, the seller canceled the contract with us. When our time ran out, didn't want to give us the time to go and put another financing plan in place.
Yeah.
He turned around, put it back on market, but then wasn't able, to sell it at the price that he wanted. We had put it under contract kind of at the peak. The numbers still worked for us. Like the numbers would have worked. It's not like we were overpaying for it, but just without being able to adjust for financing, that made it a challenge. So we were able to come back, 2-3 months later to that project and, get it back under contract. We actually got a slightly lower price at that point. And then what we're able to do there is, I put the project under contract in my name and then wholesaled it to the partnership, disclosed that to my partners up front, like, hey, I already had this under contract. I lost this amount of money on it, but like I already went through the entire due diligence process. I'll release all those files to the partnership. Like that's money that we don't have to pay again. So if I can wholesale this land into the project, we don't have to pay due diligence. I can put that money back in my pocket and be made whole, and we can move forward. That's what we ended up doing. But it was kind of scary having, lost that big chunk of money. It was a substantial amount. So kind of ended up, pulling that one off just barely. But yeah, 2022 was a very challenging year. 2023 was much easier, I guess.
Well, it's like, the bigger the pieces, the bigger the mistakes, right? And so like maybe you lose some earnest money on like a single family property and you're like, I lost my $5,000. But when you're playing up the ladder, it's like the higher up you go, the higher farther down you're gonna fall, and it's maybe a 10x multiplier, lose 50 grand or something. So when it comes to real estate, what do you think your secret sauce is? What comes easy to you that other people might find difficult to do?
I mean, like those questions are hard, right? Because like stuff that seems easy to me, I just assume is kind of easy for everybody. And then stuff that's hard for me and I see other people doing it, like I'm like, oh man, how do you do this? But I'm sure they feel the same way, right?
Yeah.
Just in reverse. For me, I think that, I'm pretty good at, doing research, having my numbers, having, everything, with me and being able to speak to that very well when asked. So I'm pretty good at speaking on my feet, recalling information when I need it. So that helps me a lot in meeting with partners and investors. When people ask me a question about a project, I'm very detail oriented, so I kind of go through everything and make sure I have all the answers and all the information. I'm familiar with it. And then when I'm asked, I have it, and if for some reason I don't have that answer, I'm just upfront about that. I just say, oh, shoot, like I don't know, I don't know that one. Like I didn't think to look that up, but I'll get the answer for you. And I think people really appreciate the transparency there. I'm not just going to try to BS them and make something up that's maybe wrong. So just kind of thinking on my feet, having the information at my fingertips, having a good memory, being able to recall that, and also just being very attentive to detail. I would say is, if I see something wrong, in the underwriting or in a project, I'm not just going to gloss over it to try to get the deal done. Like I'll actually really dive into it and be like, why is this not adding up? What is going on here? I need to get to the bottom of this. And often that, may uncover some stuff that's not so great, or maybe it uncovers a benefit that, I hadn't even realized was there. So, I would say those are, my strengths there.
Being in the details and actually being able to remember them after you leave the computer. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, with everything that you've kind of scaled into here, what's the biggest obstacle these days?
I'd say the biggest obstacle right now is financing. We're seeing this huge credit crunch and liquidity crunch with the banks right now.
Hmm.
I mean, there's this failure with Silicon Valley Bank that I'm sure
Yeah.
that everybody knows about, and
Yeah.
a
For
lot
like
of these,
5 days, they ran it on the news and now it's like gone by the wayside.
yeah, a lot of these other big banks are having issues too. I know Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, and some of those really big players have a lot of exposure, in the bond market. And so they haven't necessarily sold, all of that, or
Hmm.
all their, holdings there, but they're looking at substantial paper losses there that are just sitting on their balance sheets. And a lot of these smaller, local and regional banks are having a similar crisis. So they're just very hesitant to put out funds for projects. I've got a couple development deals I'm trying to get funded right now, which has been extremely challenging. Thankfully we're not in a position where we're stuck. We've got either no debt or very low debt on
Hmm.
the properties, so we can just sit there and hold them in perpetuity until things turn around. It's, I mean, not always what investors want to hear, but you always just got to turn around and say like, well, hey, we're not about to get foreclosed on. Like, there's a lot of people out there that are getting foreclosed on. Like, at
Yeah.
least
They're not going to make
money's
it.
really safe here.
Hmm.
Like, you could liquidate this project tomorrow and give you your money back. You might not get like a great return, but like your capital is safe.
Their
Um,
principle. Yeah.
Right. So it's a challenge getting financing. One of the big things we're seeing with banks right now that's been a challenge is they're requiring, high amounts in deposits in order to even
Hmm.
fund the loan. So that's kind of become almost an unwritten condition of getting a loan, and I've had, discussions with a few banks where they're saying something like, hey, we want to see, 10-20% of this loan amount, not just liquid, but in a deposit account with us. And you can't
Hmm.
use it like it can't just be your company bank account that, is going to get
That
drawn
you're showing
down.
me on paper. Yeah, we want to
Right.
hold it. We want you to bring it
Exactly.
to the bank in a bag, give it to us, and
Exactly.
they want to know that and that's probably a reflection of the bank's liquidity in the thing. Like
Exactly.
they are trying to stack up some money in the bank because the smaller bank, from what I understand, especially in the United States, is they're just taking loans a lot of times from the bigger banks. If the bigger banks are having challenges, then the smaller banks are having less ability to move stuff around. And a lot of times with developments, the bigger banks aren't necessarily your go-to bank. Like the regional bank is the one that's most interested in financing regional construction. But if they can't get a loan from the big bank, then how can you get that loan? And they're saying, okay, well, we can do it, but you're going to have to turn into an A loan by bringing us, 300,000 on 3 million. And we're just going to hold on to that. So you're going to have the 300,000 and we're just going to put that down. And are they saying in an account, not against the debt? So even if you had to bring a 10% deposit to the deal, you're also having to bring the bank an additional 10 as security.
Yes, exactly. 10 or even 20%. I just spoke to a
And it's
bank
just
the other
sitting
day.
there, right? It's just sitting
Right.
in their
It's
bank
just sitting
account.
there. I mean, it accrues interest. They're like, hey, you can put it in the bank and, put it in a CD, make 5% on it. But that becomes a hard sell to investors when I'm like, hey, we got to put down, 20-25%. Because remember, leverage is lower too. Nobody's leveraging up to, 80%, like at least with the bank
Mhm.
right now. They're wanting to keep their leverage, 50 to 75% if you're going with the bank. So it's like,
Yeah.
man, if I'm only getting a 70% LTV, and so, or LTV or LTC, and I got to bring 30% to the table, but I got to bring another 10 to 20% that's just going to sit in the
Mhm.
deposit account, and I can't even use that. Like that, that kind of blows up the numbers on a
Well,
lot of deals.
it's blowing up your numbers. The investors
Right.
could care less about our problems, but it's definitely eroding your margins because like you'd say, okay, I'm going to give you, just for the sake of the discussion, like I'm going to give you 10 points on your money. Okay, well, and that's kind of a going rate. Let's say it's like 7 or 10 points, and you put it in the bank account, it's only getting five. So where's the other five coming from? Well, now
Right.
the
You
deal
gotta pay
has to be
a deal.
underwritten differently so that
Yeah.
you can make up the difference somewhere.
Yeah.
So how are you navigating that with your investors? What are you saying or doing to kind of alleviate that stress that's happening in the lending environment?
You know, thankfully, we're, in a pretty favorable position on all of our development deals. We're not, very highly leveraged or anything, or,
Mhm.
or deals, we're kind of done and we got the loans before, the liquidity crunch. So we're just riding on, fixed rate debt from, 18 months ago, or, 12 months ago or whatever it was. So that's on the development side. On the existing asset side, I mean, we've been doing a lot of seller financing. Every,
Yeah.
7 properties that we bought in 2023 were all bought with seller financing. And we're seeing a lot of success with that right now because sellers still want to sell their properties, but the banks aren't lending, and so they're kind of like, all right, like I guess if I'm going to get it sold, I'm going to have to seller finance it. So we just approach them. We're like, look, we want to get you out of this seller finance note as soon as possible. But like, if you want to make the sale now, you got to finance
Mhm.
it back. Why don't you give us, an interest only, period with like a, 4-year balloon or something like that. And, like, hey, well, we'll give you a good down payment, 20-30% down payment, seller finance us the rest. It'll be interest only. Like, so you're not like getting your principal back, you're just like, you're making some extra money here off of this interest. And then
Mhm.
boom, like, when this is up, we'll try to get you out of it as soon as possible. But, you know,
That's
just
kind
like
of
make,
like the way, buying the old mortgage rate instead of
right, exactly.
refinancing into some new mortgage and paying all that. You just keep the owner in the lending position and like try to solve the problem the best that we can, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
are you find the deal and then the money, or do you prefer to have your capital lined up and then go looking for projects?
Um, it's it's like it's a little of both. Like I like, I have a number of capital partners that I do work with pretty regularly,
Mm-hmm.
and they know what I do. They like working with me. And I actually have a fairly specific buy box. Like I don't just buy anything off the street.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what my investors like. So they already kind of know what I'm going to bring to them. And, generally when I'm looking at a project, I'll put some very preliminary numbers together and take that to, my investors and,
Mm-hmm.
just basically say like, hey, this is the project I'm looking at. This is kind of where I expect that it's going to shake out once I do the due diligence and the underwriting. Like, you know,
Any
would
interest in
yeah,
that sort
yeah,
of thing? Yeah.
would you be interested in this? Do you have capital for this? Like, what are your thoughts on it? And I try to kind of gauge like, hey, who's interested? If there's a whole bunch of people that are like, oh yeah, like, I mean, if that's what the numbers are going to be, I'm like totally down. I got 500K, I got $1 million, whatever it is that I want to put in.
Mm-hmm.
Or if not, then I know, that, oh no, I'm tapped out of capital right now. I don't have anything to invest, or oh no, that I don't like that market or whatever. And so I kind of gauge a little bit, not not exactly soft commitments, but kind of soft commitments, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll do the due diligence, we'll do like the full underwriting, we'll get all that together, and then we'll present them with a formal offering memorandum of like, hey, all right, these are the exact numbers. Here's all the steps that we ran through for due diligence. Like, this is exactly what you're buying. Are you interested in this? And we've already kind of warmed them up to it, so they kind of know that it's coming, and then it's
Yeah.
pretty easy for them to give us, just like a yes or no. So that's typically how we tackle it.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, especially on the development side, that seems um relatively uniform in that you're not like going for 30K,
Right.
50K. We have to start the process a little earlier in the preliminary stages to figure out who's actually on board, and then not drag them along, but keep them on board, nurture that idea, and then get that commitment and close on that like larger down, or the larger commitment of say a half a million or $1 million for some of these larger projects. So um yeah, we could probably go an hour talking about this sort of stuff because there's lots to deal with. But I think what would be better is if, if people want to connect with you, they want to find out more, they want to connect with you directly. What should they do? How do they find you?
Yeah, if people want to connect with me directly, they can find me on Facebook or on LinkedIn. Those are the two platforms I use the most. Or you can visit my websites. I've got two companies, so you can go to www.irongall, investments.com, or www.distance, the number 3development.com. So distance3development.com. And you can shoot me an email. I got two email addresses. You got Andrew at irongallinvestments.com or Andrew at distance3development.com. So those are all the best ways to get in touch with me.
That's how you find Andrew. Well, I really appreciate you stopping by and letting people know that despite what they're hearing, people are still building. So I really appreciate you letting our audience, giving them some perspective as to what you're seeing down there in the development side of things.
Yeah, definitely. Always happy to share my experience. There's definitely still deals being done. So anyone wants to chat, hit me up. I'm always happy to jump on a call or, email back and forth or whatever.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate it. And until next time, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.